So let's start. Number 7. The Aerosol Spray Can. You know when you're just trying to enjoy a summer evening, and the mosquitoes absolutely will not stop eating you alive? Yeah. Now imagine that, but the mosquitoes are actually wiping out entire units of soldiers. During World War II in the Pacific Theater, Allied troops were literally taking more casualties from malaria and yellow fever than from actual enemy fire. The military desperately needed a way to instantly gas tents with insecticide, so they built a bomb. Researchers Lyle Goodhue and William Sullivan realized that if they mixed insecticide with a liquefied gas inside a high-pressure cylinder, opening the valve would atomize the liquid into a deadly, suspended cloud. It's basically like shaking up a soda bottle and slightly cracking the cap. The military mass-produced 50 million of these literal bug bombs, which originally weighed about a pound and were made of solid steel. But when the war ended, manufacturers had a massive problem. Millions of these heavy-duty steel canisters were left over, and they were way too industrial and expensive for civilian households. To avoid going under, they had to pivot. They completely cheapened the design, swapping the heavy steel for disposable tin cans with simple plastic valves, and rebranded the military bug bomb for the modern home. Soon, that exact same technology expanded to hairspray, spray paint, and cooking oil. Which means the high-pressure canister originally engineered to annihilate disease-carrying jungle mosquitoes is now exactly what you use to dispense your whipped cream. Number 6. Duct tape. Here's the weird part about duct tape. It is actually legally banned by most building codes from being used on actual air ducts. But the reason we even have the ultimate dad tool to begin with? It was invented by a desperate mother trying to stop soldiers from getting shot. During World War II, military ammo boxes were sealed with paper tape and dipped in wax to keep the gunpowder dry. The problem was, the paper tabs kept ripping off. That left soldiers desperately hacking at the boxes with their combat knives just to reload while actively taking enemy fire. It was a stupid design flaw, and it was getting boys killed. Enter Vesta Stout. She was an ordnance plant worker with 2 sons in the Navy, and she realized the military desperately needed a waterproof, cloth-backed tape that could be ripped open by hand. When her supervisors completely ignored the idea, she didn't just let it go, she bypassed them and wrote a direct letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. And honestly, FDR actually read it. He agreed it was a life-saving idea and immediately ordered the War Production Board to make it happen. They contracted Johnson & Johnson, who engineered a 3-layer beast made of medical tape, fabric mesh, and rubber adhesive. The mesh meant you could tear it in a perfectly straight line with your bare hands, but it still had massive tensile strength, basically acting like a flexible, sticky cast for broken objects. Because it repelled water, soldiers started calling it duct tape, like water off a duck's back. They quickly realized this stuff could fix literally anything, from jeeps and guns to torn tents. When the war ended, the troops brought the tape home with them. During the massive post-war housing boom, civilians started using it to connect HVAC air systems. The color was swapped from military olive drab to silver, and it was officially rebranded as duct tape. But in a massive stroke of irony, the rubber adhesive actually dries out and fails under high heat, creating a major fire hazard. Which means the only thing in the world you aren't supposed to fix with duct tape is a duct. Number 5. The safety razor. Everyone thinks the clean-shaven professional look is just some timeless standard of male grooming. They're wrong. The daily habit of shaving your face is actually a direct byproduct of surviving chemical warfare. Before World War I, majestic beards and massive mustaches were the absolute standard for men. If you wanted a clean shave, you usually had to go to a barber with a straight razor. But then, the trenches of Europe introduced chlorine and mustard gas. Suddenly, having a beard was a literal death sentence because a gas mask cannot form an airtight seal against facial hair. The US military immediately mandated that every single soldier had to be completely clean-shaven to survive. But there was a massive problem. You can't exactly wield a deadly straight razor in a muddy, pitch-black trench while artillery shells are dropping around you. They needed a fast, foolproof tool so a guy wouldn't accidentally cut his own throat. Enter King C. Gillette. He had actually patented a double-edged safety razor with disposable blades a decade earlier. It had a protective guard that only exposed the very edge of the metal, kind of like a lawnmower deck stopping the blade from hitting the dirt. Before the war, It was viewed as an overpriced luxury gimmick, but the military forcibly changed the market overnight, ordering a staggering 3.5 million razors and 32 million blades. Millions of men were forced to shave in under 3 minutes every single morning, strictly as a matter of military discipline and survival. When the war finally ended, an entire generation of guys returned home, completely habituated to the routine. The beard was effectively dead for the next 80 years. So yeah, the ultimate symbol of the modern, well-groomed civilian man is really just a leftover survival tactic for poison gas attacks. Number 4. Facial tissues. A paper company named Kimberly-Clark just wanted to save World War I soldiers from inhaling lethal poison gas. Instead, they accidentally created the modern facial tissue. During the war, there was a massive shortage of cotton because the military was using it all for uniforms and explosives. But they desperately needed a cheap, highly absorbent material to stuff inside gas mask canisters to filter out airborne chemical weapons. So, Kimberly-Clark figured out how to chemically treat wood pulp and beat it into a fluffy layer called cellucotton. It was basically a microscopic sponge made of paper, absorbing 5 times more than cotton at half the cost. The military ordered it in bulk. But when the war suddenly ended in 1918, the company was left staring at warehouses packed to the ceiling with leftover gas mask filters. With 0 military contracts, they were facing total financial ruin. They needed a pivot, and fast. So, they ironed the material thinner, softened it up, and launched it in 1924 as a disposable cold cream and makeup remover for Hollywood actresses, rebranding it as Kleenex. A few years later, a head researcher noticed people weren't just using them for makeup, they were blowing their noses into them. The company quickly shifted their marketing, pitching it as the handkerchief you can throw away. Sales instantly doubled, completely destroying the gross, reusable cloth handkerchief industry in the process, which means every time your allergies act up, you are literally blowing your nose into a decommissioned military gas mask filter. Number 3. Saran Wrap. A researcher at Dow Chemical named Ralph Wiley accidentally created a weird, unwashable, toxic-smelling plastic byproduct and tried to throw it away. Instead, he ended up inventing the ultimate jungle armor. During World War II, the extreme moisture of the Pacific Theater was absolutely destroying military assets. Fighter plane parts were corroding to pieces on transport ships, and soldiers were literally losing their feet to trench foot or jungle rot because their boots were permanently soaked. The military needed something entirely impervious to water and air. Dow Chemical realized that weird chemical byproduct Wiley had made a polymer, called PVDC, was effectively a microscopic brick wall against oxygen. Because of its dense molecular structure and electrostatic charge, it clung to surfaces and sealed out moisture perfectly. Dow named it Saran, and the military went wild. They began spraying it directly onto fighter planes to protect them from sea salt corrosion, and they wove it directly into the insoles of combat boots to stop soldiers' feet from rotting off. It successfully protected billions of dollars of equipment, but when the war ended, the military stopped buying it. Dow was suddenly stuck with a massive supply of this weird, clingy green plastic and 0 customers. They realized that if they rolled it out extremely thin, it lost its chemical smell but kept all its airtight properties. They purged the green dye, made it completely transparent, and spun it onto little cardboard tubes. In 1953, they pitched it to the public as a way to keep leftovers fresh. It was a massive hit. Though, fair warning, SC Johnson actually changed the formula in the 2000s to make it less toxic, which is why modern Saran Wrap doesn't cling anywhere near as well as the original. But still, it is wild to think that we casually wrap up our potato salad using the exact same armor that used to protect bomber planes. Number 2. The EpiPen. One day in the 1970s, the Pentagon realized they had a terrifying problem on their hands, and the solution completely changed modern medicine. During the Cold War, the US military was terrified of Soviet nerve agents like sarin gas. If a soldier was exposed, they had only minutes to live, meaning they needed to inject an antidote instantly. But here's the catch. You can't exactly sit there delicately preparing a tiny glass syringe when you are violently shaking, wearing a bulky, heavy-duty hazmat suit, and actively being shot at. The military needed something foolproof. They contracted an engineer named Sheldon Kaplan to invent the combo pen. It was a violently spring-loaded auto-injector. A soldier could just aggressively slam it into their own thigh, and the spring would drive the needle straight through their uniform and chemical suit in under 3 seconds. It was basically a nail gun, but for medicine. The technology worked flawlessly in combat zones, but Kaplan's company, Survival Technology Incorporated, realized that this exact same brutal mechanism could solve a massive civilian crisis. People going into severe anaphylactic shock from peanut or bee allergies faced the exact same problem as poisoned soldiers. They had minutes to live and couldn't operate a tiny syringe while literally suffocating. So, in 1980, Kaplan simply swapped out the military nerve gas antidote for epinephrine, kept the violent spring-loaded design exactly the same, and launched the EpiPen. Today, it's prescribed millions of times a year and saves thousands of lives annually. It is standard issue in every single school nurse's office across the country, which means the ultimate symbol of suburban helicopter parenting was literally designed for World War III. Number 1. Superglue. Imagine accidentally gluing your fingers together while trying to fix a cheap coffee mug, and then realizing that exact same annoying chemical was originally used to spray directly into open combat wounds. That's exactly the wild history behind superglue. Back in 1942, a chemist named Dr. Harry Coover was just trying to invent clear plastic gun sights for the military. Instead, he accidentally created cyanoacrylate, a chemical he completely rejected because it frustratingly stuck to absolutely everything. But fast forward to the Vietnam War in the 1960s, and medics were facing a massive crisis. Soldiers with severe chest and abdominal injuries were bleeding out in helicopters before they could even reach a hospital, and traditional stitches simply took way too long. That's when the military remembered Coover's ultra-sticky mistake. You see, this chemical relies on water, even the trace moisture found in human blood and skin, to instantly link its molecules together into incredibly strong chains. It's basically like microscopic liquid plastic that freezes solid the exact second it touches water. Medics actually developed a spray can version of the stuff. When sprayed directly onto a massive, bleeding combat wound, it instantly polymerized, creating a rock-hard plastic scab that stopped the bleeding right on contact. It saved untold numbers of lives in those medevac choppers. But here is the weird pivot. The FDA wouldn't immediately approve it for everyday civilian medical use because that early formula caused slight skin irritation and actually released heat as it cured. So, the company just changed their marketing strategy. They figured, hey, if this stuff can bond human flesh together instantly, it can definitely fix wood and plastic. They rebranded it, put it in tiny tubes, and sold it to the public. So yeah, the annoying stuff sitting in your junk drawer right now? It was quite literally engineered to glue soldiers back together on purpose. And don't worry, modern emergency rooms still use a modified, non-toxic version of it today, famously known as liquid stitches. Thank you for watching and sticking till the end. We've got plenty more videos coming in the future. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss them. See you.